I'm going to try something new in this video with our backport series, but today we're going to be running Galarian Rapidash. Rules are in the description. You guys know how this goes. I didn't make the sprites. I'll have a link down below to where I got them from. And before I get into what I chose for its moveset and why I went with what, let's talk about the stats. And they're the exact same as Cantonian Rapidash, where we're a fast physical attacker with two special typings in Psychic and Fairy. Of course, these two typings come with immunities to Ghost and Dragon type moves, but considering the only Dragon move in Gen 1 is Dragon Rage, and the only Ghost moves are Lick and Nightshade, well, Confuse Ray as well, that's not really gonna matter. And while the Bug type is super effective against the Psychic type, it'll now be neutrally effective against us. Of course, the only Bug moves in Gen 1 are Pin Missile and Twin Needle, although there is a third that I'll touch on shortly here. But being part Fairy type, we have a big weakness to poison, and in the early game there are a lot of Weedles, Ekans, and Nidorans that just love to use Poison Sting. In the back of your mind you might be thinking that this would make Koga more difficult, but we'll touch on that when the time comes. Now I want to quickly touch on the level up learn set and the TMs and why I went with what, and y'all already know, I like to use the learn set from the generation that the Pokemon came from, and this learn set is from Sword and Shield, or Generation 8 for anyone that doesn't know. I've added 4 new moves to the game. Psycho Cut is Psychic type Slash, that's really all you need to know. Mega Horn is the third bug move that I alluded to, with the main drawback being that it's 85% accurate, but the 120 base power is going to come in handy. Fairy Wind is just a weak base 40 power move. I don't end up using it, but I put it in here because maybe if you're watching this and you're interested in running this Pokemon, I do have the patch files available for channel members, so if that interests you, go check it out. And last but not least, Dazzling Gleam, which will be the strongest move for us to take advantage of our Fairy typing. I'll admit, when I looked at the Generation 8 learn set, I didn't know what the move Heal Pulse was, so I looked it up. And it looks like one of those moves that's meant for double battles, and while I could have probably given this thing Recover at level 35, I skipped over it. But as you see, we have a very overpowered level 5 learn set, and to briefly touch on the TMs, it learns the same as Cantonian Rapidash, just substitute Fire Blast for Psychic, add Psywave, and you're good to go. Alright, now if you don't want to listen to my rambling anymore and you're not looking at the screen, take a look now. Rapidash is going to be doing the minimum up to Brock. I'm just going to battle the mandatory bug catcher who gets one shot by Psycho Cut, and there's going to be no intro for Brock this week. Geodude doesn't bother attacking me as Psycho Cut 3-shots it. Moving on to Onix, while it does outspeed, if it were to go for Bide turn 1 and then you do massive damage with Psycho Cut and then get a Gen 1 miss and it's only a 2-turn Bide, you could lose this one. But that doesn't happen today, and Gaia the Fierce Knight's horse moves on. As we make our way towards Mount Moon, we don't have to worry about PP problems, and Rapidash is able to mow down all the trainers along the way. In Mount Moon, I'm going to battle one optional trainer, this hiker with 2 Geodudes and an Onix. I've said this in a prior run, but you don't want to go into Cerulean too underleveled, because the last thing you want to happen is getting walled by, say, Rival 2 or Misty. And while you do have access to 2 rare candies along the way, along with 2 trainers in Misty's gym that could give you decent experience for the time, I've watched some runs in the past where things tend to fall apart if you're too underleveled here. When I battled the Super Nerd at the end and knock out his Voltorb, I level up to 15 and can learn Fairy Wind. I'm going to keep my current moveset of Confusion, Psycho Cut, Stomp, and Mega Horn. I do the right thing in this run and take the Dome Fossil, and once I enter Cerulean, I'm going to take on the Rival. Now, while things look kind of bad against the Pidgeotto as it brings me to nearly half health, I don't get hit with Sand Attack, which is a godsend. I level up to 16 after knocking it out, and I'm able to dispose of Abra and Rattata rather quickly, and last is Charmander. I went with this line for the Rival because Fire types resist Fairy moves, and Gyarados and Exeggutor tend to pose problems later on, but for now, I knock this thing out over 2 turns and we're moving on to Nugget Bridge. At the beginning of this video, I said I was going to try something different, and you still might be wondering what that thing is. Now as I'm doing this voiceover, I don't know how long this video is going to be because I'm still trimming down the footage, but we're going to make this run a double feature. So let's flip over to our Gen 2 color palette in Gen 1 and run the Cantonian counterpart alongside the Galarian form. I just want to say this now that this is not a versus video. The Galarian form would stomp the Kanto version in a head-to-head battle. I actually ran the Kanto counterpart a long time ago, back in October or November of 2022 when I was laid off from the mortgage industry. I've since deleted the footage because it was played on Visual Boy Advance, which visually looks terrible, and it's the emulator I used for the first few videos on the channel actually before I made the switch to RetroArch and then Super Shucky, along with the fact I just got a really bad time with it compared to today's standards. I don't remember what my exact time was, but it was over 5 hours and in the level 70s. It kind of compares to my old Ninetales and Arcanine run. And I'm actually working on a bigger project that I'm calling my re-ranking series, where I revisit these aged runs from 2+ years ago, take what I know now, compare it to what I did back then, and see if I can improve on these times. I have a few playthroughs left for Season 1, but yeah, these times are night and day compared to 2.5 years ago me. Arcanine and Ninetales were originally going to be featured in the first marathon of this series, but pending how you guys like this double feature, I might pair them with their Alolan and Hisuian counterparts. I wanted to originally try this with Alolan Golem and Sandslash, but didn't get the Cantonian playthroughs recorded in time, so maybe I'll stick them in the re-ranking series. I did start a Sandslash playthrough a long time ago, but I kept getting the shittiest Brock luck and decided to come back another day to it. I'm going to try to keep things briefish as best as I can for the Cantonian form, especially to keep the video length reasonable-ish. In Viridian Forest, I'm going to fight the 2 optional bug catchers and the mandatory bug catcher. You might be wondering why I don't fight the optional rival outside of Viridian, and to be honest, it's a waste of time in my opinion. I used to take them on with certain Pokemon, but now I just skip them entirely. Although when I rerun a Pokemon like Hitmonchan, I might consider battling him because I will need at least level 15 for Brock, but that's a run I'm still putting off in the meantime. Trying to take on the rival as soon as you drop off Oak's Parcel is a bad idea, because the Pidgey usually just sand attacks you to death, and in the event you can make it past it, Squirtle in this instance would just knock you out. And to backtrack to him after leveling up some, you're better off just blackout grinding on the Junior Light Years trainer, which today Rapidash isn't going to be doing any of that. After knocking out both the Diglett and Sandshrew, Rapidash reaches level 10, and now we're going to take on Brock. And I get pretty lucky against the Geodude here. I did reset the run once because I got crappy luck with it going for Tackle over and over and getting multiple crits, but here, even though Ember is a 6-hit KO, it goes for Tackle once. I'll take that. Against Onix, things don't start out great. Its first Tackle crits me, and I get down to a third of my remaining HP before things start to take a turn. As I get it down to half health, I end up burning it, which also wastes Brock's turn because he uses a full heal. He then goes for Bide, which of course I'm going to switch to Tail Whip, and then I try Stomp to see if I can get a lucky flinch, which I do. Onix ends up not attacking me for the rest of the battle, and that's the first badge down. Unlike its Galarian counterpart, Cantonian Rapidash is going to be picking up a lot of battles on the way to Mount Moon. Next gym leader is Misty, and I have a level goal in mind for when I reach Cerulean, and that's level 18. And you'll see me just fumble my overworlding here for a little bit. I should have battled these 2 trainers at the beginning of the route when I first entered, and then just looped back around. But instead I fought my way to the end and backtracked. Don't be like me. In Mount Moon, Rapidash is going to pick up 4 optional battles. The first is against the Lass and her Clefairy. The next is against the Bug Catcher as I pick up the Rare Candy and Escape Rope. Then we have the Lass with the Bellsprout and Oddish, and last is the Hiker with 2 Geodudes and an Onix. By the time I reach the end of the cave and knock out the Super Nerd's Grimer, Rapidash reaches level 18, which is what I wanted. Making it into Cerulean at just a little over 30 minutes in game time, I'm going to take on the rival first like I did with the Galarian form. Pidgeotto unfortunately hits me with a Sand Attack, but I managed to hit my next 2 Embers to take it out. But now Sand Attack is going to do Sand Attack things, as I miss my first stomp on Abra before taking it out, and I miss my first 2 on Rattata as it hits me with Hyper Fang and Quick Attack. My next Stomp does one-shot it, but now I have 21 HP to deal with Squirtle. Stomp does over half as it hits me with Tail Whip. My next one misses, and Water Gun brings me to 8 HP, but when it matters most, Stomp hits, knocking out the turtle, and we can continue on to Nugget Bridge. And since both Pokemon are here in their runs, let's stick with the Cantonian horse. I have a level goal in mind for Misty. I want to be level 23, and we're going to need a little bit of luck against the Starmie, which I'll touch on when we battle her. Once I make my way through routes 24 and 25, Rapidash is level 22, but I can reach level 23 by battling the Innocent Bystander Rocket. Now that I'm level 23, I'm going to take on Misty, and I just want to note something here. I haven't made the gym leader intros yet for the re-ranking series using the Gen 2 color palette, so we're going to be using the old intro for now. Apologies for that. Let's take on the Water type Specialist. Honestly, the Gen 2 Kanto Gym Leader track kinda matches up well with Misty's intro. Stomp can't one-shot Staryu, which is a bit unfortunate, and it crits me with Water Gun doing over a third. I can knock it out the next turn and now have to contend with Starmie. Rapidash is faster, and if Stomp can get a flinch or two, that would be golden. I get a crit, but not a flinch, and it retaliates with Bubble Beam bringing me to 7 HP. My next stomp brings it to red health, but I don't get a flinch, and Starmie finishes me the next turn, giving me my first reset. I try again because I know this is possible. While Stomp gets a less favorable range against Staryu, I get a flinch, so now I have full health going into the Starmie. Stomp looks like it's doing about a third, as Bubble Beam does over half to me. My next stomp crits, bringing it to red health, and Starmie chooses Water Gun, which leaves me at 12 HP. I can finish the star off, earning myself the Cascade badge. I promise we're going to switch back to the Galarian horse soon, but we're going to stick with the Kanto one for now, and we're going to pick things up in the SSN. With Cantonian Rapidash, there are 3 things I'm going to pick up while here. The first is the TM for Rest. This is going to be needed when we take on the League. The next is the TM for Body Slam. You already know what's good with this one. Body Slam's a really good move, and it's going to be the best move we have on our horse for a while. And the last is the Gentleman Candy. I take on the rival afterwards and I just leave my cursor on Body Slam. I don't get sand attacked by Pidgeotto, which is great, and Body Slam is able to 1 or 2 shot all of his Pokemon, even getting paralysis on Wartortle. Things continue rolling against Surge. Body Slam one-shots both the Voltorb and Pikachu, and while it does nearly 3/4 to Raichu, Surge wastes his only 2 turns in battle going for X speed and then Growl. Cantonian Rapidash has quite the obstacles in front of it on its way to Celadon. The first is this first Pokemaniac with a Cubone and Slowpoke. Even though Body Slam gets a crit on the Cubone, it can't one-shot it, as Bone Club does a quarter to me. Honestly, a lot less than I thought. I knock it out and move on to the Slowpoke. Body Slam gets another critical hit, but once again it can't one-shot it. Confusion does pathetic damage, and thankfully it doesn't confuse me and I can knock it out. And against the next mandatory Pokemaniac, you can see that Body Slam without a critical hit is doing about half. Confusion once again doesn't confuse me, and I can 2-shot the Psychic Water type. And then there's this junior trainer with an Oddish and Bulbasaur. I was trying to save my PP on Body Slam for the hiker, so I go for Ember, which doesn't one-shot. Oddish retaliates with Stun Spore, paralyzing me. I had to use the full restore I picked up in the underground path on my way to Vermilion, so I can't heal the paralysis. I muscle through the battle with 34 HP remaining, and I have to dig out of Rock Tunnel to the Pokemon Center just outside of it. This is a frustrating time loss, and some would consider this a run ender, but we're going to persevere and move on, because the next mandatory trainer is going to prove to be quite the opponent for our Fire Horse, the self-destructing Hiker. In this first attempt, I just go for straight Ember on his Pokemon. I'm hoping for crits, burns, and some defense curls and rock throw misses, and unfortunately, I get none of the above. I get tagged by 2 rock throws from the first Geodude, and the second just blows up right away, leaving me with 15 HP for the Graveler. And while I do get it down to red health, it just blows up and takes me out for our second reset. In the next battle, I take a page out of Gym Leader Matt's book from his Rapidash run. I start out by going for Growl in case the rocks blow up right away, and after using 2 on the first 2 Pokemon, I just go for Ember, because I don't want to get tagged with rock throws over and over again. And once again, against the Graveler, this battle gets down to the wire, but this time, Rapidash emerges victorious. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves though, and jump back to the Galarian version before we dive into Celadon with the Cantonian version. Unlike our Cantonian counterpart, I have an answer for Misty in the form of Mega Horn, and against this hiker, I'm going to level up to 20 and have the option to learn Agility, which I will teach over Stomp. And my battle against Misty is a little too close for comfort. Psycho Cut easily dispatches Staryu, and in a perfect world, I would have loved for Mega Horn to just one-shot Star me. And while it nearly does one-shot the Star, I miss 3 out of my 4 uses, as Starmie brings me down to 2 HP before Psycho Cut finally finishes it. Heading to the SSN with our little pony, I'm not going to be picking up anything. No Rest TM, no Body Slam TM, no Gentleman Candy. I'm going to head straight for the rival battle. And while I am able to one-shot his entire team, the Mega Horn shenanigans continue as I miss on Kadabra. Surge actually gives me a bit of a scare. Psycho Cut is able to one-shot his first 2 Pokemon, but Raichu hangs on from one, and its Thunderbolt deals massive damage thanks to a crit. Had it paralyzed me, this would have more than likely been a loss, but Rapidash moves on, resetless. And unlike its Kanto counterpart, it doesn't struggle at all in Rock Tunnel, and the hiker is simple. With both Pokemon either in or heading to Celadon, we're going to stick with the Galarian form for now. I opt to head to the Rocket Hideout first to take on Giovanni instead of battling Erica. Really, you could have done them in either order, and had I battled Erica first, I would have picked up Psychic from Saffron. Psybeam and Psycho Cut are more than enough though to take care of his rock Pokemon and Kangaskhan, as his entire team is one-shot. And Psycho Cut continues to be useful against Erica, one-shotting all of her Pokemon except the Tangela, which just goes for Bind on me. It's only a 3-turn bind that does 6 HP total in damage, but still annoying. Pokemon Tower is next, and it's a little frustrating watching this footage back because I still haven't picked up the TM for Psychic, but Rapidash doesn't need it for Rival 4. Psycho Cut and Mega Horn are more than enough to get the job done against him. It's also more than enough to tear through the Channelers, Ghastlies, and Pokemon Tower, but where should I head afterwards? Do I want to head to Fuchsia and battle Koga and then rush Blaine? Do I want to go to Sylph? Do I want to do Koga and then Sylph, or vice versa? The answer probably isn't a shock to anyone, but I decide to head to Sylph afterwards, and although I've gotten access to Saffron now, I still haven't picked up the TM for Psychic. I am going to go to the 10th floor to battle the Rocket Grunt for the Carbos and Rare Candy. Not picking up Earthquake always pains me, and once I get the key card, I'm just going to rush straight to the rival. Against Pidgeot, I start the battle by setting up an Agility, and I shouldn't be doing this because I'm just going to use Psycho Cut on all but 2 of his Pokemon. It hangs on from a Psycho Cut and hits me with Sand Attack. My next misses as it deals a little bit of damage with Wing Attack and I knock it out. Mega Horn, of course, right on cue, misses against Execute as it poisons me with Poison Powder, but my next one hits, dealing 4 times damage and one-shotting the Grass Psychic type. Gyarados follows, and instead of hitting me with something like Bite or Hydro Pump, it just chooses to go for Leer. While this softens me up, it also badge boosts me. I knock it out and then level up. But that's okay because I don't need these badge boosts anyway. Mega Horn comes in clutch, hitting through the sand and one-shotting Alakazam, and last is Charizard. This thing's best move is Slash, but like Gyarados, it just goes for Leer, as Psycho Cut hits through the sand and knocks it out over 2 turns. Giovanni's next, but 2 of his Pokemon are part Poison type and the other 2 have terrible special. I don't really know what to tell you about this one, and you can see what's happening on screen. It's a sweep. No intro for Sabrina this week, it's the Mega Horn show, which one-shots her entire team, although I do switch to Psycho Cut against the Venomoth. Alright, so all jokes aside, I actually skipped the Psychic TM in Saffron, and for good reason. Honestly, I didn't think I would need it. While teaching the move would be an upgrade over Psybeam, I planned on replacing that with Dazzling Gleam when the time comes. And we still do get Psychic by level up, although it's at level 56, but that will be at a time where it's going to be the most useful, during the League. And maybe at that time I'll want to replace a move like Psycho Cut or perhaps something else that's on our moveset at the time. When I first sat down to do this playthrough, originally I didn't think Mega Horn would be on my learn set for the entire run, but it's become quite the Alakazam and Execute killer, and with Exeggutor looming on the Champions team, it might be useful to keep this attack around, plus it uses my higher physical attack stat. I think I've rambled long enough about movesets though. Once I enter Fuchsia, I go through the Safari Zone as you see here on screen and collect the final HMs of the run. Koga's Gym. Mega Horn tears through the psychic types in here, and I even save a trip to the Pokemon Center by using an elixir in my inventory. Koga was a battle where I honestly thought Psychic might be better than Psycho Cut, but no, Psycho Cut gets the job done, getting the one-shot sweep on his entire team. Before switching back to the Cantonian version, I at least want to get through Blaine with the Galarian version. There's not going to be any optional battles from now until Blaine. No battling Psych or any other fisherman, no swimmers, scientists, super nerds, burglars, etc. So let's skip to the final quiz machine in his gym and see what our Galarian counterpart can do against his fire-type Pokemon. Growlithe is first, one shot by Psycho Cut. Ponyta follows, one shot by Psycho Cut. Rapidash vs Rapidash. It hangs on from a Psycho Cut, but Blaine's great AI heals it with a Super Potion and it falls the next turn. I level up and can learn Takedown, which I'm not going to teach this move, but our Cantonian counterpart will be learning a similar move. Last is Arcanine. Psycho Cut does around half as Blaine heals it with a Super Potion. My next brings it to a third as it hits me with a weak Ember, and I finish it on the next turn. Before we get too far ahead though, let's check back in with our Cantonian horse. It last left off beating the self-destructing hiker and exiting Rock Tunnel what feels like almost 10 minutes ago in this video. Once I arrive in Celadon, I head straight for the Celadon Mansion. Since I'm going to be rushing Blaine with this Pokemon, I pick up the Eevee. My thought process was that if I'm going to the mart for the Pokédoll to get Mimic later, among other items, I can get a Water Stone as well. I'm going to head to the Game Corner Rocket Hideout afterwards, and this is relevant with Cantonian Rapidash. There's two items I'm going to pick up here. The first is a PP up. I also picked up the one in Celadon where you cut down the tree to get to it. And the second, we just have to battle this one optional rocket, and then we can get TM10, which is Double Edge. This, along with Rest, will be relevant later on when we face the League. Of course, I still have to face Giovanni, and this battle is slower for our Cantonian horse. I have to 3-shot his rock Pokemon, but at least I get lucky burning the Rhyhorn, although it does crit me with Horn Attack. Kangaskhan is also a 3-shot with Body Slam, and had it kept attacking me and maybe crit, I probably would have lost, but Giovanni just uses a Guard Spec, throwing the battle. In Erica's gym, I elect to do some optional training, and I immediately get flashbacks to my old Ninetales run. Against this cool trainer's Ivysaur, Ember leaves it on red health as it hits me with Poison Powder, poisoning me. While I knock it out the following turn, I just elect to keep training. I don't want to backtrack to the Pokemon Center. The sad thing is, while I do have some Super Potions I picked up in Vermilion in my inventory still, I also have antidotes that I bought in Pewter that I completely forgot about, and it's for moments like this where I just have the worst poison luck. I wish I could say something about Erica, but I can't. We're a fire type, we outlevel her Pokemon and outspeed them all. We can just move on. While the battle against the Pokemon Tower rival plays, we have to decide where to go next with our Cantonian horse. It doesn't make sense to go to Silphco next like the Galarian version did, unless I wanted to do some optional training, but I can do that on Cycling Road. There are a few bikers and cue balls with Mucks and Weezings on their team that give great experience, and of course there's also the hidden PP up, which I plan on dumping all of these into Fire Blast when the time comes, and the rare candy. Of course there's the biker boss at the end of this route as well that gives good experience. And by the time I enter Fuchsia Gym after heading through the Safari Zone, Rapidash is level 40 on the brink of 41. And by the time I battle Koga, it's on the brink of level 42. Body Slam is a 2-shot on the first coughing, which means it'll be the same on the second. But I come into this battle with 8 PP of it, and I would like to save at least 3 or 4 of them for the Weezing. Because of this, I switched to Stomp on Muck, and even though it's used Minimize, I don't miss. If only the additional effect existed in Gen 1 with Stomp and Minimize. I 2-shot Coughing number 2 and last is Weezing. Body Slam does pathetic damage, and I thought Ember might be the better play, especially for burn purposes, until my second gets a critical hit, and because of that, I'm able to 3-shot Koga's Ace. With the Soul Badge in hand, it's going to be no surprise where I'm heading next. I want to obtain our best move ASAP. I'm going to fight one trainer along the way, Psych the Fisherman as Scott and others call him. After blitzing through the mansion, I blitz through the gym quizzes and challenge the quizmaster himself. And honestly, this battle surprised me, not because it was a close battle or anything, I won pretty easily, but because Blaine actually used his super potions at not terrible times. Although his move selection was not the best, I guess you get an A for effort, Blaine. The real prize from this battle is TM28, which I teach to Rapidash immediately in the place of Ember, and then dump all 3 of my PP ups into it. The only place left to go is Silphco, and I'm going to head immediately to the 10th floor, battle the Rocket Grunt, and pick up the Carbos and Rare Candy. It would have been nice if this thing learned Earthquake, and including the Grunt to get the card key, I'm going to battle a total of 5 trainers. Well, I guess it's 6 if you count the Machoke Candy guy. This brings Rapidash to level 46 before I take on the Rival, and I end up sweeping through his first 4 Pokemon until I get to the Blastoise. The best water move it has at this point in the game is Water Gun, which is a little sad. I just spam Fire Blast on it. It's just going to pick between Bubble, Water Gun, and Withdraw, the last of which is why I'm not using a move like Body Slam, but I only lose about a third of my health against Blastoise, and we can just move on. Giovanni afterwards is not a challenge, mostly because we outlevel him by quite a bit. I go into this battle with 4 Fire Blasts, but I elect not to use one on Nidorino in case I miss, which does happen against the Rhyhorn, but Fire Blast has more than enough firepower, pun intended, to one-shot his 3 remaining Pokemon when it does hit. Before heading to Sabrina's gym, I'm going to head to Copycat's house and pick up the TM for Mimic. This, along with Double Edge and Rest, are going to make an appearance during the League. The biggest surprise to me about Sabrina's battle is that she's not a one-shot sweep, despite out-leveling her first 2 Pokemon by 10 levels. The Mr. Mime barely hangs on from a Body Slam, but it just wastes its turn going for Light Screen, and while I should have switched to Fire Blast for Venomoth, I just kept my cursor on Body Slam while holding down A, and I don't get punished with Psybeam critting or confusing me, and while Body Slam is a 2-shot on the frail Alakazam, it gets caught in paralysis, so it doesn't have a chance to hit me with something like Psybeam to confuse me or crit me or anything like that. Both Pokemon now have 7 gym badges, but we're going to stick with Cantonian Rapidash for now. We'll flip over to Galarian Rapidash once we get to the League. Giovanni, I actually have a little bit to say here. While Fire Blast and Body Slam one-shot his first 2 Pokemon, Nidoqueen hangs on from a Fire Blast and gets burned, but it just hits me with Tail Whip, which does soften me up for the Nidoking. It too hangs on from a Fire Blast, and I actually keep my cursor on it and miss a second. I only have 3 remaining for Rhydon now, and had Nidoking use something like Thrash its first turn, there's a small chance we could have lost here. And as far as Rhydon goes, it's only going to use Fissure against me, which can't hit me because I'm faster, and I only need 2 Fire Blasts to take out the Rock Rhino, which also gets a burn in the process. Rival 6 time. This battle is pretty similar to the Rival 5 fight. I'm only able to one-shot 2 of his Pokemon, the Growlithe and the Execute, and thankfully I don't take too much damage along the way as we make it to Blastoise, which now has Hydro Pump. It's going to randomize between this and Withdraw, and it goes without saying we want it to use Withdraw. Fire Blast looks like it's going to be a 4-hit KO, but we get a burn. The next brings Blastoise into orange health as it hits me with Hydro Pump, bringing Rapidash to 3 HP. It barely hangs on from my next Fire Blast, but it goes for Withdraw. Had Blastoise defeated me, I think I would have popped Rare Candies to probably go to 55 and get over 2 damage rounding thresholds. But as Bill Belichick says, we're on to the League. But let's flip back to our Galarian pony and get caught up with it. We last left off defeating Blaine. Before heading to Viridian City, I'm going to stop in Saffron City and get the TM for Psychic, finally. And as far as the battle against Giovanni goes, I one-shot his entire team except for the Rhydon, which is surprising. Rival before the League, this battle gets a little close, just like it did for our Cantonian horse. Pidgeot opens the battle, critting Quick Attack. I have to 2-shot it with Psycho Cut before Rhyhorn comes out. I'm setting up agility on it, and you might be wondering why. Well, I just leveled up, so I can set up freely, but I also have to deal with a Gyarados that knows Hydro Pump, and I'm not going to 2-shot that with Psycho Cut if Pidgeot hung on, so I'd like to take as little damage from its attacks as possible. And speaking of Gyarados, its Hydro Pump does around 40 HP to Rapidash, but Psycho Cut is not a 2-hit. Luckily, the rival's AI here is coded to be the same as the optional rival, so he uses a potion. I knock it out and the following Alakazam with Mega Horn, and level up going into the Charizard. Psycho Cut does about half, as it just goes for Leer, and like with the Cantonian version, had I lost, I would have just used rare candies. I probably would have only leveled to 50 though with this Pokemon. It's really good. Both are off to the league. I should note that in Victory Road, both horses picked up the rare candy. For Galarian Rapidash, this was a first playthrough, and this is one I tend to like to pick up, even though I did cut the Gentleman candy earlier, because gut feeling told me I didn't need it. And as for our Fire Horse, it's a fire Pokemon. We have a Gyarados lurking, Blastoise lurking, Lorelei lurking, and some other things that I'll get into shortly, but let's kick off the league with both of these Pokemon. We're going to stick with our Galarian horse for now, and prior to the battle with Lorelei, I popped all 10 of my rare candies I had in my bag. It was one of those gut feelings I had that said just do it. I have to two-shot the Dewgong with a combination of Mega Horn and Psycho Cut as it misses Growl. Cloyster barely hangs on from a Psycho Cut, but we get a retroactive Super Potion and I take it out on the next turn. I set up an agility on Slowbro hoping it doesn't hang on from a Mega Horn, but it does. But we get another retroactive Super Potion before taking it out. Jinx is annihilated by Mega Horn and last is Lapras. I try out our new toy in Dazzling Gleam, which does maybe a quarter to Lapras. Thankfully its Body Slam doesn't paralyze me, and I switch to Psycho Cut to get the 2-shot on the Loch Ness Beast. Bruno's next, and it's the Psycho Cut show. There's nothing more to say here. Let's move on to Agatha, and with her, it's kind of the same, although I do test Mega Horn damage on Gengar since it does have pretty weak physical defense. But I have to 2-shot it along with her last Gengar. Before we take on Lance, we're going to switch to our Fire Horse. I make a pretty big mistake in this battle, which is not teaching Mimic beforehand. You could argue not using candies is also a mistake, but let's hold off on that. With the Cantonian version, I did battle 2 optional trainers in Victory Road just to get some extra training in. In this first battle, while I am able to make it by Dewgong and Cloyster, Slowbro is able to clean me up and give me a reset. I get some better luck and ranges in the next battle though, and now that I have Mimic, once I fully set up with Amnesia, Fire Blast melts any chance Lorelei had at victory. Bruno time, and check this out. Fire Blast one-shots the first Onix, and I mimic Ice Punch from Hitmonchan before knocking it out with Fire Blast. And out comes Hitmonlee. I switch to Body Slam on it, which leaves it in orange health, and it retaliates with Jump Kick, getting a critical hit and knocking me out. I guess that's what I get for not healing before this battle. But in the very next battle, Bruno just goes for a next defend, and I'm able to knock it out and then just use Ice Punch and Fire Blast on his remaining Pokemon. Agatha time. This battle starts out in the worst way. The only attack I have that can hit her ghost is Fire Blast, and at minimum, I'd love to 2-shot each. I miss my first 2 against her first Gengar as it hits me with Nightshade and Confuse Ray. I get through the confusion to hit my third, which looks like it's doing half, so I will 2-shot the ghost, as it wastes its time going for Dream Eater as I knock it out. Golbat follows and Body Slam is a 3-shot on it. It reconfuses me, but then it just goes for Haze to get rid of the status condition. Once I knock it out, I level up to 55 and can learn Agility, which I'm going to teach in the place of Stomp. Haunter comes out and this is where it all ends. Fire Blast does half as it hits me with Hypnosis. I stay asleep for the remainder of the battle as Dream Eater and Nightshade take me out. I have 11 candies in my bag, and I'm going to use 6 to go from level 54 to 60. This unfortunately doesn't make a difference in the next battle, because Haunter still puts me to sleep with Hypnosis. I stay asleep for the remainder of the battle as Nightshade and Dream Eater finish me once again. I take one more quick reset because I tried mimicking Hypnosis and accidentally took Confuse Ray, and this happened. I get an agility set up on Gengar number 1 as it confuses me. After I hit myself, Fire Blast crits, one-shotting it. Golbat comes out, and in a previous battle, I had crit my first Body Slam, so I was able to 2-shot it, so I don't know if Badge Boosts matter for the 2-shot or not. Badge Boosts definitely matter on Haunter though, as Fire Blast nearly 1-shots it. While it does confuse me, I don't hit myself and knock it out the next turn. I've made it to Arbok for the first time. I can 2-shot this thing with Body Slam, and thankfully it hits me with Bite and not Glare, which would have been terrible for the final Gengar. And the luck continues against her final Gengar. Fire Blast crits, burning it in the process, and Agatha wastes her turn using a Super Potion. We're finally on to Lance. Before I face Lance, I'm going to teach Rapidash Double Edge and Rest. I'm going to take another page out of Gym Leader Matt's book and delete Mimic and Agility for these two. This first battle goes terribly. Double Edge does around half to Gyarados. It crits with Hydro Pump and knocks me out. In the next battle, I get lucky. I get a Hydro Pump miss on the first turn, but Double Edge leaves it on a Sliver, which allows Hydro Pump to knock me out when it hits. I get the same results in the next battle, except Lance uses a Hyper Potion when it gets down to red health. I switch to Body Slam to try to get Paralysis on it, which I do get, but it gets through it, hits Hydro Pump, and knocks me out for a third time. I did mention I would have a lot to talk about at Lance, because despite him being the Dragon Master and dragons being powerless against fairy types, he gives our Galarian pony a tough time. Instead of using Hydro Pump against me, Gyarados uses Hyper Beam instead, which does over half. I take it out the next turn and move on to the Dragonairs. I want to set up an agility for some badge boost to withstand Aerodactyl and possibly Dragonite's attacks, but Dragonair's Hyper Beam gets a crit, and that's my first reset with the Galarian horse. In the next battle, I teach Psychic in the place of Psycho Cut, but the guaranteed crit makes Psycho Cut the better move for this battle. While I do end up making it to Aerodactyl, Psychic doesn't one-shot it, and Hyper Beam finishes me off. In the next battle, Gyarados' opening Hyper Beam crits me, leaving me with 7 HP, and by the time I make it to Aerodactyl, I can't get past the flying prehistoric Pokemon. I get why Lance is tough for Cantonian Rapidash, but why Galarian? After one more loss where I made it to Dragonite, only for it to crit Hyper Beam and knock me out, I have this battle. Instead of opening with Hyper Beam, Gyarados chooses Hydro Pump, which still does close to half, but this is going to be the most HP I've had heading into the Aerodactyl, and instead of it choosing Hyper Beam, it chooses Supersonic, which misses. I can knock it out and I've made it back to Dragonite, which Dazzling Gleam crits, getting the one-shot. Let's flip back over to the Fire Horse, and I'll admit, with all the attempts I had at Lance here, I should have given Horn Drill some thought. I did purchase the TM and Celadon just in case I got walled, but thanks to some Hydro Pump misses and a lucky crit, I'm able to 2-shot the Gyarados after Lance uses a Hyper Potion. Against the first Dragonair, I'm going to heal up with Rest, but by the time I wake up, I'm at half HP again. Body Slam is a 2-shot on it, and thanks to a crit, I can 1-shot the second, moving on to the Aerodactyl. Fire Blast nearly 1-shots it while inflicting a burn, but it lands Supersonic. After 2 rounds of hitting myself and Aerodactyl chipping me down with Bite, Burn KOs the prehistoric Pokemon and I have 6 HP moving on to Dragonite. I shake off the confusion just in time and rest to full HP, but by the time I wake up I should probably consider going for rest again because Hyper Beam hurts, leaving me at 58 HP. I go for Body Slam hoping for Paralysis, which I don't get, and instead of finishing me, Dragonite chooses Barrier. I switch to Fire Blast, which does decent damage, and another will knock out the dragon, who chooses Barrier once again. Lance completely through this battle. Both of our horses are moving on to the champion. Let's see if we can get a first try victory and close out this double feature. We're going to stay with our Fire Horse for now. Fire Blast can't get the one-shot on Pidgeot, but it just goes for Whirlwind, giving us a free knockout. I level up going into Alakazam, and Body Slam can't one-shot it. It retaliates with Psybeam, doing about a quarter as I knock it out the next turn. Against Rhydon, I'm going to try to fish for some badge boosts, so I go for Body Slam to do as little damage as possible, and while I do get some Leers and Tail Whips, I was hoping for a few more. I go for Rest because I want full HP for the remaining Pokemon, but it ends up going for Fury Attack and leaves me with less HP than what I started with. Let's just Fire Blast this thing into oblivion. Arcanine wastes my time with Roar as 2 Body Slams take it out, and Fire Blast one-shots the Coconut Tree as we move on to Blastoise. Fire Blast does about a third as it sets up with Withdraw. My next brings it into Orange Health as it misses Hydro Pump. Fire Blast, don't fail me now. It connects with the Tanky Turtle, winning us the battle. But before we get into Cantonian Rapidash's results, we're going to flip back to the Galarian form. Psycho Cut 2-shots Pidgeot as it just mirror moves it, and I level up going into the Alakazam again, which gets annihilated by Mega Horn. Against Rhydon, I set up Agilities, which looking back on this looks like a bad play by me. I was doing it to try and soften the blows I'm going to take from Charizard and Gyarados because Psycho Cut isn't going to be a one-shot on either of them. I should have just went straight offensive out of the gate. Psycho Cut is a 2-shot on Rhydon, which surprises me considering its terrible special, and we move on to Exeggutor, which gets annihilated by Mega Horn. As I suspected, Psycho Cut is a 2-shot on Gyarados, as it chooses Hydro Pump and misses, and we're on to Charizard. Like with all of the Champions Pokemon, Psycho Cut is a 2-shot on it, and instead of choosing something like Fire Spin, it goes for Fire Blast, not getting a crit or burning me, and we take it out the next turn, winning the run. Galarian Rapidash finishes the game at level 62 with a real time of 36 minutes and 49 seconds, with an in-game time of 2 hours and 19 minutes, and this is a personal best for me. And because of this, I didn't give this thing a second playthrough, although I will in the future. I just didn't feel it was necessary at the moment. Whereas Cantonian Rapidash finishes the game at level 65 with a real time of 51 minutes and 4 seconds with an in-game time of 3 hours and 8 minutes. Not bad. Shaving off more than 2 hours in-game time from my previous run all those years ago. With the length of this video, you'd think it was one of my Gen 5 runs, but if you want to see more of these double features in the future, let me know in the comments. I can think of at least 5 Pokemon off the top of my head I could do this with. But as always, thank you for the continued support on the channel, and if you're interested in playing with Galarian Rapidash for yourself, consider becoming a channel member where you'll have access to the patch file, among other patches I've cooked up. I've got more backports coming and cooking, and there are some ROM hacks that I also want to check out, like the Super Mario Mon one, and the Yu-Gi-Oh! Fire Red one that I need to get around to. But until then, I'll catch you in my next one. Take care, everybody.